you know, on YouTube, I talk about fitness and martial arts. And when I started my channel, I wasn't sure what I was going to talk about, but I know it was fitness and martial arts. And then
Yeah.
as the channel grew, and as I, because I had a couple of ups and downs with the channel, meaning I started it, and then I kind of quit. I kind of stopped, and then I started again. Then I stopped, and then, anyways, and then at one point I really decided to give it a go. When I finally realized that, you know what, I think I'm gonna share my journey, and now that I'm a trainer, then I'm going to talk about training at the same time in my journey, about what I want to do. So my thing is that when I was a kid, uh, I watched Bruce Lee, and I was like,
Yeah.
holy shit, I want to be like that guy. I want to
Yes.
be the guy that kicks ass and that's super cool and muscular and all that. And so that's how I started. So I just watched his movies and I was obsessed with Bruce Lee. I was obsessed with ninjas. I was obsessed with watching G.I. Joe, Transformers. He-Man was amazing. That was like the ultimate cartoon. He would just scream in the air with his sword and
And
I
then he
got
got
the
the
power.
power, right?
Yeah, he's like, by the power of Grayskull, and then he just goes insane, and then he turns his cat into a lion and everything. So, anyways, I was watching Hulk Hogan pro wrestling, so I was like, man, yeah, I want to be, but Bruce Lee had the biggest impact, so I want to get into martial arts, and then what happened after that? So my parents let me start martial arts when I was 13, and I started doing kung fu. So I did Shaolin Hung Gar Kung Fu for 2 years,
Yeah.
and it was after 2 years of learning forms and I got to my purple satch. Then I realized, like, hey, wait a second, I'm not learning how to fight. I want to
Mhm.
fight. So then from there I realized, okay, well, my uncle told me, hey, why don't you try Taekwondo? They do a lot of sparring. So I'm like, okay. So I told my parents, all right, this kung fu shit it's not happening. Let's do taekwondo. Yeah, yeah. So I got myself into taekwondo, and it was sparring, so it was fun. So I thought I knew how to fight all of a sudden because I'm kicking the bag. I'm doing light sparring all the time at the club. Like when I mean light, I mean without the chest protector.
Yeah.
Just like we're tapping each other, but we're going relatively fast. But there's some control. And then from there, I wanted to compete and go to the Olympics. I'm like, yeah, this is for me. I'm gonna be Olympic champion. Now the problem with my parents was that, well, we came over to Canada when I was 2 years old after the Vietnam War.
Okay.
So we were essentially boat people. So them, it was all about survival, giving me and my sister an education, and that was it. And sports was just like something you do for on the side to be healthy. So they didn't want to um, invest in me continuing moving up the ranks in Taekwondo because the school where I was at, like, you had to pay for every belt promotion, and
Mhm.
then the sensei at that time wanted me to get to my black belt as soon as possible because he supposedly saw that I had some talent, and he wanted me to get to black belt so I could start competing and obviously represent his school and hopefully get some results. So I talked to my parents about that, but my parents didn't want to invest in that. They're like, no, 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 no. You're just doing this for fun. We're not paying for belt promotions. We're not paying for competitions for nothing. So then at one
Mhm.
point, I'm like, that kind of crushed my dreams, and that was a childhood dream of mine to go to the Olympics. So then, anyways, fast forward, in my 20s until 30s. So then I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life. From 16 to 19, I was doing taekwondo. And after that, when I realized that, okay, well, there's no future for me in taekwondo because, well, my parents aren't going to pay for it. And at that time, I was so young. I didn't know anything. So I didn't know that I could, possibly get a job and finance myself and figure out a way. Besides, I wasn't allowed to. Like in an Asian family, you're not allowed to. All you had to do is study. That's it. You're not allowed to get a job. I wanted to get a job. They didn't let me. So, anyways, so from there, I just kind of then I started getting bullied in school. Like around when I was 13, I was getting bullied in school, and then from there, what happened? Because of that bullying experience, it kind of traumatized me in a way because I really wanted to learn how to fight because I wanted to get back at this bully. So I started getting into gangs.
Mm.
You know, like towards when I was 19, 20, I started getting into a lot of gang stuff, and because I felt as though I needed to prove myself as a man, I need to be around people, I need to fight and all that, and so and that eventually led me in my 20s to become a drug dealer.
Mm.
Kind of a crazy story. So from 20 until about 29, I was a drug dealer, you know, and I wasn't a bad guy. I was just doing bad stuff. And
This
then
actually
after that,
isn't that uncommon of a story among
it's
martial artists that I know.
oh yeah, okay, okay, thank God. Okay, and then after that, I essentially I got busted at one point. So I did some time. I went inside for about 18 months. That wasn't the first time. It was just the longest stretch that I ever did, and it was the last
Yeah.
time. So then I got out at the age of 30, and that's when I decided, okay, from 30 years old, I got out and I decided not to do any of that anymore. So I'm like, okay, well, what I'm gonna do with my life? Well, okay, I'll just start. I guess I'll get a job, and then I'll try to figure things out from there. And that's what I was trying to do. But at the same time, when I got out, I actually started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at the age of 30,
Mm.
and that had a really good impact in my life. And funny story too is that I actually discovered Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu when I was in jail.
Really?
I had
How did
yeah, okay.
how did that go?
Okay, so I was in I was in a cell. I was in a cell, and it was bunk beds, right? So I had this cellmate, and his name, I forgot what his real name was, but his prison name or his street name was Capone.
Okay.
And Capone was a funny guy. He would freestyle rap and stuff like that, and he was kind of annoying, but he made jokes all the time. So we were friends inside. And then from there, at one point, we started wrestling because he would always come up to me and say, "Hey, you want me to break your face?" And I said, "Yeah, I want." And he would always say that jokingly, and then I would shove him, and it would be the end of it. But this time, he said that. I shoved him. He shoved me back, and he's like, "You want to go?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's go." So then we started wrestling, but it was friendly, and he got me into this silly. Like back then, I didn't know what was happening. I thought it was like, "Oh my God, it's magic." But essentially, he got an underhook, and then he just gable gripped it, and then he pushed down on my shoulder, and he had my head pressed down, and he was kind of on top. I'm not sure how to describe that, but it was a very simple position where he has an underhook, it's over my shoulder, and he's pressing down like that. And I couldn't move because my shoulder was pressed down. So then I asked him, hey, wait, show me that. Like, and he's like, I'm like, well, what is that? What is that you just did? And he's like, oh man, that's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, man. And he told me, man, you gotta do this shit. Like, once you get out of here, man, you do that for 3 months, and you could kick the crap out of anybody. And he's like, I only did it for 3 months, and I could manhandle anybody in here. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah, man. You definitely, you got to do that when you get out. That's the shit, you know? So I'm like,
So what you're saying is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is good for the streets.
no, I'm saying Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu might be good for you in a jail cell where there's not a lot of space with somebody who doesn't know anything
Ah.
and who's about your size or smaller. So yeah. So anyways, so when I get out of jail, I'm like, okay, fine. I'm not doing this anymore. So let's try to figure something out. But I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I trained, from 30 to 36 in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Then after that, I went over to Judo when I was 36. And then at the age of, so between 30 and about 40, that's when, I was jumping from job to job, trying to find myself, trying to start different businesses. None of that worked out. And then at one point, I just decided that, you know what? I'm kind of tired of this running after money, running after something that's, I'm just going to do what I enjoy doing. So I'm going to live in a gym because I like working out and I like to train martial arts. So that's what I'm going to do. So the way I'm going to do that is to pay my bills is to go work at a gym and become a trainer. Might as well. So that's what I did. And then from there, I also realized that, wait a second, why not And then when I started judo, I started competing. And when I was doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu, I competed, but I never had good success there. Only towards the last competition that I did I didn't even win, but I actually performed well despite having lost. You know how it is. Sometimes your performance
Yeah.
was good. You're really happy about it, but you still lost because the guy was just better than you. But you weren't ashamed of your performance, so to speak, right?
Yes.
So
Those are interesting moments.
yeah. That was a very interesting moment, and that I remember my coach at that time in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He told me that right there, that fight. Now you're a real competitor. Everything else prior to that, like the 10 other competitions you did, that was just you like going through the motions and learning. But then after that, I stopped because I essentially switched clubs. But then after that, when I switched clubs, I switched BJJ clubs. I didn't compete anymore because I didn't feel like it because it was expensive also. BJJ competitions are expensive.